Once upon a time, in the tranquil village of Amaro, there lived a young man named Matsi. Matsi, whose name resonated with the quiet dignity of tradition, shared a tiny, worn-out hut with his mother. This humble abode, a remnant of his late father's legacy, was small and frail, left behind when his father joined the ancestors. The father's departure had left a void, and the burden of daily life fell heavily upon Matsi and his mother. Their poverty was as persistent as it was harsh. Matsi, with the hope of improving their situation, would venture to the market every day with a basket full of beautiful beads. These beads, crafted with care and love, were not enough to provide a stable income. The money he earned was barely enough to sustain their modest needs, often leaving them struggling to afford sufficient food. As he faced these daily hardships, Matsi observed his childhood friends flourishing. They had built prosperous lives for themselves, complete with grand homes, loving spouses, and children. In stark contrast, Matsi remained impoverished, confined to the tiny hut, and isolated from those who had once been his friends. Despite his relentless efforts and hopeful demeanor each morning as he set out to the market, Matsi's situation never seemed to improve. The days blended into one another, each day mirroring the last, and his heart grew heavier with each passing moment. One bright morning, as Matsi made his way to the market, carrying a large basket of beads upon his head, fate decided to test him. The road was dusty, and Matsi was lost in thought about how to improve their dire circumstances. Suddenly, his foot caught on a large stone, causing him to stumble and fall hard. The basket of beads tumbled from his head, scattering beads everywhere around him. The scene that followed was one of mockery rather than sympathy. Villagers who witnessed Matsi's fall began to laugh, their jeers cutting through the air. They pointed fingers and whispered cruel remarks. "Look at him," one woman said, "still selling beads like a beggar. All his friends are wealthy, and he's still living in squalor." Matsi, already overwhelmed by shame, scrambled to collect the beads, but the more he picked up, the louder and more derisive the laughter became. Eventually, Matsi managed to gather the beads and made his way to the market, but the sting of embarrassment and the weight of their words lingered, casting a shadow over his entire day. His heart was heavy with sorrow, and he could neither smile nor engage with others. The memory of the mockery tainted his day, and as night fell, the sadness did not fade. Struggling to make ends meet, Matsi often found himself borrowing money just to get by. One day, he borrowed a sum from a friend named Kai. Kai, known for his love of money and impatience, demanded repayment without delay. Matsi promised to return the money soon, but when the time came, he was unable to repay Kai. One early morning, before the sun had fully risen, Kai stormed into Matsi's market stall, demanding his money with a loud, angry voice that drew the attention of everyone around. Matsi, who was just setting up his stall, recognized the trouble he was in. He begged Kai for more time, but Kai, in his rage, slapped Matsi in front of the entire market. The slap echoed, leaving Matsi's cheeks stinging and his spirit crushed. The crowd watched in shock as Matsi, now the focus of their pity, was given a small amount of money by some sympathetic traders to help repay Kai. Despite their kindness, Matsi felt insignificant and utterly humiliated. The events of the day compounded his feelings of inadequacy and hopelessness. His heart, already heavy with sadness, felt even more burdened. Desperate and exhausted, Matsi decided to seek help from his childhood friend Naidu, who had become a wealthy and influential figure in the village. Matsi hoped that Naidu, now prosperous and respected, might offer some assistance. He walked to Naidu's grand house with a mixture of hope and trepidation. When he arrived and knocked on the door, Naidu answered, but his reception was cold. Naidu, observing Matsi's tattered clothes and worn shoes, looked upon him with disdain. "I don't want your poverty to rub off on me," Naidu said, refusing to shake Matsi's hand. Despite his pride being wounded, Matsi swallowed his embarrassment and explained his plight. "Naidu, I'm tired of living in poverty. Please help me," he implored. Naidu, contemplating for a moment, finally said, "If you're willing to do whatever it takes, I can help you. But remember, no one must ever know where your money comes from." Nida's words, heavy with foreboding, chilled Matsi to the bone. Yet, driven by desperation, Matsi agreed. Nida handed Matsi a sum of money, advising him that this was just the beginning, and warned him to be cautious. Matsi, though apprehensive, took the money, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. As he left Nida's house, he was eager yet uneasy, wondering what he had gotten himself into. With renewed hope, Matsi used the money to buy an abundance of food, far more than he had ever been able to afford. That evening, he prepared a feast for himself and his mother, a rare luxury. His mother, surprised by the sudden wealth, asked where the money had come from. Matsi, not wanting to reveal the truth, lied and said, "The gods have blessed me, Mama." His mother, although somewhat worried, accepted Matsi's explanation. Matsi, elated by the sudden turn of fortune, was too absorbed in his newfound wealth to heed her caution. Days later, Matsi returned to Naidu, eager to learn what steps he should take next. Naidu took Matsi to see the chief priest, a man renowned for his mystical powers. The chief priest, with piercing eyes, assessed Matsi and said, "I see a bright future for you, but you must be prepared to do what is necessary." Matsi, though frightened, was resolute. "I'm ready," he said. The chief priest then instructed Matsi to bring 2 white cockerels for a ritual. Matsi complied, buying the cockerels and bringing them to the chief priest, who performed the ritual amid a haze of smoke and incomprehensible chants. The following morning, Matsi awoke to find 2 bundles of money beside his bed, as promised. Elated, he thanked the gods and began planning to expand his business, feeling that he was finally on the path to becoming a wealthy and respected man like Naidu. However, a gnawing sense of unease lingered, as he knew this was only the beginning of a much more complex journey. Matsi hurried back to the chief priest to share his success, but when he arrived at the shrine, he was met with a chilling sight. The chief priest lay dead on the ground. Matsi's joy turned to despair as he realized the terrible price he had paid for wealth. All his dreams and hopes crumbled in an instant. His actions, driven by greed and desperation, had led him to the unthinkable. Overcome with grief and regret, Matsi fell to his knees before the shrine, clutching the calabash containing his mother's heart. His anguished cries attracted the villagers, who rushed to the shrine and were horrified by the sight before them. The news of Matsi's crime spread quickly through the village, and the villagers were filled with shock and revulsion. The villagers, horrified and angry, demanded justice. Matsi was dragged to the village square, where the elders were convened to address his crime. In front of the elders, Matsi confessed to the murder of his mother, detailing how he had been led astray by Naidu and the chief priest's dark promises. The elders, listening to Matsi's confession, were appalled. The villagers' anger grew as they learned that Naidu had been involved in the scheme, leading Matsi to commit such a grave atrocity. Naidu was summoned and, under pressure, confessed his own involvement and the further darkness of his actions. The elders, recognizing the gravity of the situation, decided that Naidu should be stripped of his wealth and banished from the village, his family accompanying him into exile. The villagers, still seething with anger, agreed to this punishment, seeing it as a fitting retribution for the wrongs Naidu had committed. Despite Naidu's downfall, the villagers' fury towards Matsi did not abate. They demanded his death for the monstrous crime he had committed. However, one wise elder spoke out, suggesting that death would be too lenient. Instead, the elder proposed that Matsi should be banished into the forest, to live alone with his remorse and the weight of his actions for the rest of his life. The decision was made. Matsi was led to the edge of the forest, his heart heavy with sorrow and regret. He would never again see his village or feel the warmth of his mother's love. Alone in the dark forest, Matsi would be left to confront the true cost of his greed and the irreversible damage it had caused. As Matsi was exiled, the villagers buried his mother with the honor and respect she deserved. Her death became a poignant reminder of the cost of greed and the importance of valuing what truly matters. The village, deeply affected by the tragedy, enacted a new law to prevent such dark deeds from occurring in the future. Anyone seeking the chief priest's services would first have to gain permission from the king.